Okay, welcome everyone. This is the fourth meeting of the Government Transition Advisory Committee's Voter and Candidate Education and Outreach Subcommittee. Today is Tuesday, February 13th, and we will be here from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. My name is Julia Meyer. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Engagement and Community Participation Manager for the transition. As a reminder, Leah is no longer serving on this subcommittee, so Bill is going to facilitate today's meeting, and I'm here to help him out as needed. Next slide, please. Before we get started, I'm just going to take a moment to go over some meeting logistics. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed. A copy of the recording will be posted on the city's transition webpage under past meetings and events. For today's meeting, we have closed captioning. To access closed captioning, click on the CC button on the bottom right of your screen. For committee members, please take this moment to change your chat settings to everyone so folks listening in today can follow along. And please remember that the meeting chat is part of the public record. For community members listening in, we have the Zoom Q&A feature available. You can submit questions or comments through there. We may not answer all of the questions that you put in the Q&A, but they also become part of the public meeting record. At today's meeting, we're not taking verbal public comment, but as a reminder, you can submit public comment at any time through our online comment form on the transition website or by emailing us at transition@portlandoregon.gov. And you can sign up to give verbal public comment at the next full committee meeting on March 13th. Next slide, please. So today's agenda, we're going to do some subcommittee business. We have time for folks to share public feedback they're hearing about ranked choice voting, updates from staff, debriefing the candidate learning sessions, planning for the next candidate learning sessions, and spending time getting your input on educational materials. And then we'll conclude with a discussion of the upcoming media plan and our next steps. Next slide, please. So no subcommittee member said that they are unable to attend, so we do expect full subcommittee participation today. We do need to appoint a co-chair to serve with Bill after Leah left this subcommittee. So next slide, please. Just as a reminder, the role of the co-chairs is on this screen, comes from your overview document, but it's to provide leadership for this subcommittee, facilitate meetings, lead subcommittee discussions, keep us on time and task, collaborate with staff on setting the meeting agendas, and encouraging consensus decision-making. And Jane has volunteered to serve as a co-chair. And please remember that co-chairs can rotate. So any questions or comments about the co-chair before I take a motion to appoint Jane?
Just thank you, Jane.
And this is Bill and Jane. Yes, thank you. Really appreciate you working with me already.
Well, Bill, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to working with you and city staff. I will say I came to this role reluctantly, but there were many people who put delightful but painful pressure on me to do this. So I promise I will do my best, and thank you so much for your kind support.
Thank you, Jane. Does someone want to make a motion to appoint Jane as co-chair?
So moved.
And
thank you, Fred.
Zach seconds.
All those in favor, can you give me a thumbs up or raise Zoom hand? Thank you so much. Welcome, Jane. It's always good to have co-chairs as staff, so thank you for being willing to serve. So before I turn it to Bill, the last order of business I want to handle is just approving the previous subcommittee meeting summary. So that's the January 9th meeting summary. I sent it out a week ago today. Before I take a motion. Does anyone have any corrections or proposed revisions?
I'll just comment, they were very extensive, so thank you for preparing them.
Thank you, Bill. I'm not seeing any proposed corrections. So could I get a motion to approve the January 9th meeting summary?
This is Zach. I move to approve those meeting minutes.
Thank you, Zach. Could I get a second?
I'll second.
Amy?
Yes.
Thanks, Amy. All those in favor, just again, thumbs up, raise Zoom hands. Great, thank you so much. I think we can go to the next slide, and Bill, I'm turning it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Julia. Let's review our working agreements, and I'll read these on the slide. But in discussion, let's challenge ideas rather than individuals and offer constructive suggestions. And let's approach different opinions with curiosity and seek to understand. And let's keep the needs and concerns of the local community and the larger region at the forefront of the work. And we can arrive on time, which we have done, and come prepared to the best of our ability. And let us know in advance if one is unable to attend a meeting. So thank you. 5, let's keep multitasking to a minimum and keep focus on the objectives of the meetings. And we will utilize, well, as we have co-chairs, we'll note additional topics as appropriate. Next slide, please. Further expectations. 7, let's honor the decisions of the group, and we'll contribute to the overall success of the group by finding ways to participate that best meet, our needs. And let's also step up and step back in order to collectively work to ensure that every member who wants to be heard is heard. And let's embrace conflict and work with our fellow committee members and staff to find ways to give each other good constructive feedback. And we'll aim to incorporate opportunities for feedback. And finally, we can use I statements just to express our personal views. Thank you. Now, I guess next slide. And this is an opportunity for us to give feedback on ranked choice voting. Based on the committee work plan, one of our roles is to give this feedback. And so we're holding time for the feedback. And this, our feedback can come from your personal engagements in the community or reading the public comments report. So are there comments that individuals would like to make about ranked choice voting? Fred, I see your hand raised, please.
Yeah, when I addressed the Holiday Park Plaza seniors, going through the whole presentation, the transition slide deck, we got to ranked choice voting, and then there's the error votes, the overvote, et cetera, the 3 choices. That was difficult to explain how, in fact, Mark Sense tally machines were going to be able to address individual error votes, ballots that are mismarked. And I assume, having programmed Mark Sense ballot tally machines myself as a county clerk, that I wonder if that's successfully being done by the vendor between the county, or if in fact the plan is to do replacement ballots so that individual election boards would duplicate the ballots with the voter's intention then marked on the ballot, so that the Mark Sense machine can tally it correctly. So I kind of got lost and I couldn't justify in any way, shape, or form that in fact what's stated as the result of those ballots is indeed what the county is going to be able to accomplish. And they also definitely, and June knows this, they want they agree that closer to the election, like this summer or fall, that they would want to have an actual voter education session rather than, the overall transition picture. And we'll just add that to our calendar. Thanks.
Well, thank you for the question, Fred. And James, Julia, Sophia, June, might you have a comment on Fred's question before I call on someone else, or would you like to wait to talk about that later?
I'm happy to give a quick answer. One, the county has been involved with our writing the election code and how votes are treated, overvotes, skip rankings, repeat rankings, all of that from the beginning. And we're working closely with them. However, it is, they entirely control the tabulation machines. They're the ones that get it certified. So really, like any of those questions, the best thing that anyone from the city can do is direct them to the county for further information when they get that detailed. With a specific function of a tabulation machine is something that really just needs to go directly to the county. So I don't have any concern that the machines that are certified will be able to count the ballots in the way that we've discussed, and no concerns have been raised by the county that's true. But like I said, I would direct specific tabulation. Like it's not part of our voter ed to talk about how a tabulation machine works. So
no, but the candidate ed does talk about those. Well, all of our education projects talk about the 3 error ballots and how they will be reconfigured.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's important that we want voters to understand when they fill out a ballot how those votes will be counted and how that ranking will be counted. So that's something that's important. But how a machine reads that ballot, that's a step beyond where we really would just send them to the county to better explain. It's their area. We don't want to step on their toes or misexplain something. But absolutely, those 3 I don't know that I call them errors, but 3 ways that votes will be interpreted, the voter intent will be interpreted. It is important to explain that so that we don't have somebody, think they're doing a protest ballot or something else and then find out that on the day of election that their ballot isn't counted the way they thought. So we want to educate people on that, just not our job isn't educate people on how the
so it's a question for the county.
Correct.
Right. Thanks, James.
Okay. Thank you, Fred, and thank you, James. Terry.
I'm not sure whether this is the part of the meeting to ask this because it might come up later, but I have a question about how the precision with which we talk about multi-winner RCV and how the excess votes are redistributed. So, once a candidate has reached the threshold, those excess votes get redistributed to other candidates. The problem is the algorithm does it proportionately, and all of our website, other materials do it just sort of like the next choice on your ballot gets redistributed. And the precision there is, maybe I'm being pedantic, but I worry about being precise as we describe it. If you understand the question. I see James nodding, and maybe there's rationale.
Does James nod respond to your question, Terry, or would you like a little elucidation?
Well, if elucidation is to be had, but I get bogged down in the precision when I try to explain it to people because I'm trying to be precise. Yeah. And describing it in another way is incorrect. And if we've decided that we can describe it in that other way that's incorrect, just to get the point across, then that's a choice. So I guess if you have a comment on that, I'm interested in it. Otherwise, I will continue with my own personal practices.
Well, Bill, if you don't mind, if I
Please, James.
so I have two quick comments. I don't know that it's going to fully satisfy you. My first is that we largely have been taking an approach in voter ed that we kind of call the bite, snack, meal method. So we really intend these first touches to be like a bite where it really is not. There shouldn't be an expectation if you're at an event and you're talking off the cuff, or you're giving a presentation where you're, to a room of 40 people, whatever. It should be, give them the very high level view, give them a sense of what's going to happen, and then they should go to other places for the deeper dive. They should go to a website or a video where they can really sit down themselves and walk through that, or they should call the elections office where we can really, or email us or whatever, where we can really like focus on that one person that has that deeper question. So it's sort of we want to separate out the people that want that deeper dive from the people who are like, you're spending 30 minutes describing, a mathematical equation and how, tabulation works and all this stuff. The vast majority of people, it's not what's helpful for them to vote on a ballot. So I know that's not exactly what you want to hear. But the other thing I'll say is we also get that. It's as you dive deeper, you get into that further. People want more and more and more detail. So we're working right now on kind of the best way we can message that. We're boot camping a little bit. Our intention is, we've always intended after the May primaries, when we are going to go full bore on voter education for the city on ranked choice voting. And so we want by then to have a message where we can. And so I think we want to keep working with you and give it. This feedback is incredibly useful in what specifically people aren't getting. Let's try different things, workshop different ways to explain it, and come back and tell us this worked, but man, when I went into this or I used this analogy, people were lost. So that when we get to that summer of, we want everybody in the city to have heard and learned about ranked choice voting, that we have a message that is really clear and concise. So it is something that we admittedly are still sort of workshopping through the best way to explain it. I can walk through an hour-long description of the detail and cover every single little thing, but that's not going to be useful for most people.
Just a quick follow-up on that is the video and the website have the simple description on it. So if you're looking for a deep dive, you got to dive deeply to get it. And just
just to clarify, the bite would be like us or you out in the field, kind of directing them to other places. The snack is that website, the video, the quick 5-minute video that explains it, or the candidate guide, a quick visual description. The meal would be a back and forth over email or speaking directly to the subject matter expert, where we really spend time and I've had a couple of those emails with people that are highly interested, but it's uncommon that people want to walk me through the election code. Most Portlanders have not read the election code. So we are very into it, but most people out there have not read the actual election code and want that, give me the algorithm and all that. So I want to meet those people's needs. It can't be our primary focus at this time, but we hopefully will get a message that we can get it to everybody that makes sense.
James, this is Bill. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not looking for it right now, but I did come across, or one of the sources on ranked choice voting has sort of a step-by-step description of an example. And my understanding for shall we call it the excess votes, is you look at the number of extra votes and ask what percentage is that of the total votes that the candidate got. And that excess, let's say it's 5%. Then you look at the voters who voted for that candidate, and you look at their second choices and allocate that among the other candidates, but only 5% of their votes. Have I said that accurately?
It sounds like you're saying accurately as a general. There are some details there that we want to be specific. So yeah, it's, if you do like an easy model, if 5,000 or, I don't know, 5 votes is the threshold to get there and they have 10 votes, then, that is half of the vote. So 50% is surplus. So 50% of everyone's second choice will be transferred over.
Yes.
So yeah, it's so effectively what you said. I just want with numbers, it makes it very clear
Good.
that we're both on the same page. But
Good.
yes.
Thank you, James. Tim, you have your raised hand, and we welcome your question, and thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone. Tim Scott, Director of Elections for Multnomah County. And I just wanted to answer Fred's question. The tabulation system that we use is called Clear Ballot, and we're a few steps beyond the MarkSense voting machines that Fred was speaking about. We use digital imaging in Clear Ballot, and so it's similar to the old MarkSense voting machines, though, in that it's looking for regions on the ballot where there could potentially be a mark, and if it identifies areas where there are more marks than there should be, it puts that ballot digitally into a bucket and identifies it as an overvote. And then we would adjudicate that ballot digitally based on it being in that bucket. So that's the first place we go when we start adjudicating the ballots following the election. So 2 people of different political parties sit at a monitor. They pull up the candidate contest that they want to look at first, and then they look in the overvote bucket and see, oh, here's an overvote. They zoom in on that overvote and they look at how the voter voted and try to determine voter intent. Is it truly an overvote, or did they maybe fill in 2 ovals in 1 column and then cross 1 out? And if they crossed 1 out, we can tell the system digitally, don't count the one that was crossed out. And then when the cast vote record is created, it only shows a vote in a rank for the candidate where we adjudicated out that overvote. Does that make sense?
Well, that's an overvote. Then there's a skipped voting. And
skipped votes are handled automatically through programming in our CTAB, because what Clear Ballot did is they built our CTAB, which is a publicly available open source tabulation system, and they built that into ClearCount as part of the software. And so that's just an option that we can select when we're programming the election. And under the city's code, a skipped ranking is handled in a specific way, essentially promoting the rank that follows it. So that is just a system automated process. So when it came to a skipped ranking, it would automatically tabulate it as the county's code requires, or the city's code requires.
Okay. So it's this digital adjudication is very much like how replacement ballot was done by in the past with a election board of members of different parties.
Correct. It's very simple. Well, it's the way adjudication used to happen before, but it's happening on screen instead of actually either removing a mark or adding a mark to the ballot.
And there'll be a digital record of that.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. Thanks a lot, Tim. It's very helpful.
You bet. I'll step back into the background again.
Okay. Well, Tim, but conspicuous background. So thank you for being here. And with regard to ranked choice voting, as we've talked, it's important to have clarity. And I'd recommend when we talk about ranked choice voting, we be very positive about it, because if individuals come away thinking this is complicated or won't work, then they won't vote. And or they may not vote, and then that's defeating the purpose of encouraging everybody to get out and express choices. I distinguish that from our role in giving constructive feedback to city staff and the policy. But on the ranked choice voting, really encourages to be positive, and these are good questions because we want to be able to make our communication as clear as possible. So thank you. Well, perhaps we'll move to our next subject, and that is staff updates. And James, do you have further you've answered you've given some good answers to questions, but we welcome a broader update from you.
I think actually I'm passing this to Sophia first. Give updates.
No worries. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, or yeah, technically, or good morning still, I guess. For staff updates, we won't take too much time. I think a few things we just wanted to touch base on were a coloring page, an idea of a coloring page that city staff came up with. As you know, we are working on creating that educational comic, which we should have sometime this month to give to you all for review. So we'll send that via email. But as part of that, they're creating a district, a map of the districts. And so it was really easy for our staff to then take that as a coloring page to interact with children during tabling events.
Oh.
So we're working on that. So I think it's just a fun little activity that we can have. So just wanted to share that. Additionally, wanted to give a quick update on the contract conversation. So at the last meeting, we shared that we would share a copy of the overview document and the legal binding agreements. So the city attorney is currently reviewing that. So as soon as we get those from them, we'll send them to you also to review. We can expect that, I think, within a week or two max during the final review process. And then kind of the last update is that we've been talking to the county about voter education and about when is the right timing to go on full board and start talking about everything about RCV. And they wanted to come back at a different time to talk about voter education versus informing and when is the right time based on best practices to do voter education. So I just kind of wanted to flag that as an agenda item for a future subcommittee meeting. So just wanted to share those things.
Sophia, on the last item, can you repeat that? I want to be sure we do get it on our agenda for a future meeting.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about the county, right, about ranked choice voting and when is the best time to do voter education versus informing voters of the changes that are coming up, especially considering that there's an election in May. So
Yes.
They would love to come back at an appropriate meeting whenever possible to talk about that and best practices just in general about voter education. Okay,
excellent. Yeah, my understanding is in terms of this going out to talk about ranked choice voting, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the desire is that we do that after the primary election in order to avoid confusion that the primary election is going to be the way we're used to doing things. No ranked choice voting. So we wait till after the primary election in order to really go out and talk about it, ranked choice voting. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that's correct. But we understand also that, you all are talking to folks in community and you're getting questions. So trying to find that right balance of informing versus educating and just like you're saying, again, not confusing voters around the May election.
Yeah, quite right. And I'm just thinking, I don't want to be confusing. We still go out to our, communities and talk about the impending changes, but want to be sure it's, to clarify it does not apply to the primary election coming up. Thank you, Sophia. That's good. Oh, Amy, have a question, please?
Yes, Sophia, I'm wanting to make sure I understood. You were mentioning the contract that's in development. Just wanted to confirm is that the contract for the hard to reach voter work?
Yeah, so I think the last meeting we had, you all wanted to review copies of the actual application process, like questions and the evaluation process, and then the subcontract agreements. So those are being currently reviewed by city attorney. So I should probably have them either by this week or early next week, and then we'll send them via email, so we don't have to wait a full subcommittee meeting for you to review them.
Can I ask a follow-up question about that process with the sub grants? How is the contract holder soliciting sub-grant responses? And how do we know that there's that all of the possible organizations to reach hard to reach voters are part of that outreach and able to apply for those sub-grants?
Yeah, so we'll be collecting the application. So on the voter education website, we'll have a new little section where we'll direct folks to read all the information about the subgrants and then where they can apply directly there. And that'll be through a SurveyMonkey form, essentially, where folks can submit their application. And then we'll give those copies to United Way, who then would administer and kind of begin that process. And then for outreach, we really want to work with you all and a bunch of folks, the county as well, partners, to do a robust outreach. So we're actually have a collaborative meeting later this week where we're specifically talking about what our outreach plans are, what organizations we need to be reaching to, and what kind of toolkits and kind of essentially outreach toolkits we need to be creating and who to send them to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you for the response too. Destiny, your hand's raised, and we look forward to hearing your question and comment.
Thank you, Bill. One thing, when usually presenting ranked choice voting, I don't bring up primaries. I just say you will see your ballot for November 5th, and that's when you'll be voting. And so usually that prompts it, and there's no confusion added into the mix. So just giving them November 5th, that's the election you're looking for.
Good distinction and good point. Thank you. James, please.
I just want to clarify quickly. I think that's great, Destiny. We have had a couple organizations that have been a little unclear, and that they have said things like you won't get a Portland ballot in May, or don't worry about elections until May. So they absolutely, Portlanders will get a ballot in May. It's the presidential election year. They're going to see a ballot. The county has things. We're going to have measures on the ballot. So it's really important that distinction is made, that ranked choice voting and Portland city candidates will not be on until November. But everyone in Portland that is registered should still get a ballot in May. They need to return that ballot. There's just been a couple organizations that have put out a little bit of misinformation there, not intentionally. So just be careful about that.
Thank you, James. Okay, I think we can go to our next slide, and our next subject is candidate sessions. And we want to give opportunity for feedback on candidate sessions. But first, James, did you want to talk about candidate sessions? And then we'll invite feedback from our committee members.
Yeah, I think if you want to go to the next slide, I think we have
next slide.
Some primer material. So I'm going to be real brief. My understanding is that you had the opportunity to watch the session. I know we did the virtual session while you all were in a meeting, but hopefully you got a chance to look at it. If you haven't, it's up and available on our vote website, portland.gov/vote. So please go there and check it out if you haven't yet, because we still want feedback. So I just want to quickly cover the differences. So we've had 2 events. They were successful. We had about 60-ish attendees between the 2 events, close to about 100 registered. So, it's a pretty good turnout based on who registered. This type of event, that's great turnout. A lot of candidates were there that had a ton of questions. It's the type of event that gets into a really deep dive. So it's not like other voter education events, because you're really covering very technical details about how you file and campaign finance. So we were very happy with the success. The summer events, which we are not going to start until, we don't have exact scheduled dates, but we're not going to start until after the primary. So they'll be at the very end of May or at the beginning of June when filing opens up for city candidates. Those we're looking to broaden them out and make them a bigger event. So they'll have all of the same information, but basically a little more detail, go a little further, provide more time for questions. We want more interaction with candidates and with people that are attending. We're looking at, we're thinking, none of this is set in stone yet. We're thinking more like a 4-hour event, but it would be more like a conference. So it's a 4-hour event, but we would be very, publish the agenda with the registration. And if you just want to drop in for the campaign finance hour, great. If you just want to drop in for the ranked choice voting and districts hour, then great, drop in for that. So people can come and go. We're looking at providing lunch to make it a little more palatable, and then do, have some tabling like during a lunch hour with all of our partners. So just thinking of it as a bigger event and an expansion of that. And then the other thing is we're planning to do them. We want to do at least 4 of them in the summer, and we want to do them out in the districts. So whatever district you're in, it'll be geographically nearby you. There will be an event. If for whatever reason you can't make it, the events are all the same. So you could go to an event at another location. But those are kind of the biggest differences. And then really, I just want to use the rest of this time. If you all have feedback, and if you watch it later and you think of it, please, reach out to us through June or Sophia or Julia or whoever, and give us further feedback. But I just want to hear what you all think and what you think we could do better.
Thank you, James. And Destiny, have some observations, I'm guessing. Please.
Oh, I just had a question, and I will be jumping off soon. So, thank you. One question is, to make them bigger events, is the attendant audience still candidates, or is this just a bigger event that will have more audiences to then outreach for? Just wondering.
Yeah, great question. So the primary audience is still far and away candidates. The purpose of this is still Portland candidates. We have more than we've ever had before, so we want all of them to have a great understanding. But we recognize that a lot of people showed up, and a lot of people showed it, and people have been watching the video just to get sort of information on the changes. So that's sort of why we were talking about going to a little bit more of a conference style, so that we could do on the agenda, we could publicize it more largely and be like, this is mainly for candidates. But look, if you're really interested in sort of the ranked choice voting and that side of it, and you don't feel like you've gotten enough, then maybe you could drop in for just this. We will also make it clear, though, that there's going to be lots of other events that are much more voter specific, that are targeted at voters. So that's really where we want to send them first. But we also think that this could be useful as, it's going to go in a deeper level of detail, because it's more of a train the trainer event, because we expect the idea is that candidates will go out and talk to their voters, whereas the voter events are more of more what we talked about, that bite snack. This might be more of the snack. It won't be the meal, but it might be a step above that bite. So hopefully that kind of clarifies.
Thank you, Destiny, and thank you, James. Fred, we're forward to your observations.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I watched at least half of it, James, and I really appreciate the job you did. It's very good. You're very concise and clear, as was pretty much everyone else. I kind of got lost when we got to the staffer who, I think your elections officer in the audit's office, talking about the major donor disclosure. And there's so many variations to that maybe some graphics would have helped, or your idea of having a set agenda with subgroups, timed sessions might help. That somebody that's got the money and has the donors and would have to comply with those disclosure requirements would sit in on that session, and you wouldn't lose all the less, I guess I would say, lesser funded candidates, maybe. But otherwise, I thought it was very good, and I really appreciated the graphics on ranked choice voting, how you followed through the different colored A, B, C, D candidates and how their votes were transferred. I thought that was much better than the single slide we have in our community-wide presentations. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Terry, look forward to hearing you.
Yeah, I thought the parts that I watched were pretty good. What I would say is a summer event, you might be an opportunity for, I don't know what you'd call it, maybe pre-onboarding of council candidates and future council members, in that I thought the form of government presentation was fine. but the role of the city council is going to change a lot. And council members out on the, or council candidates on the campaign trail, I don't think quite understand that just yet. And so I see that as an opportunity, especially in a conference sort of style where there might be other stakeholders there as well. But I think candidates need that education now, and that might be the time to do it.
Yeah, Bill, if you don't mind, if I could quickly respond.
Oh, yeah, please, James.
So that's great, and I do think we want, part of it is sort of, we don't know all the things yet, and it's still early, and we also had to design this, back in December before it, so we knew no more now already. 100%, that's a great word. We do think it's a good opportunity, and Tate White on the transition team will continue to develop like how we're going to talk to candidates about what they do once they're in office. One other thing I want to say about that is we also are working sort of behind the scenes right now with Tate and with all of these other, it's this sort of massive collaboration on how we're going to onboard a dozen new elected officials. So we also will have another opportunity that sort of sometime between the election and when you take office, there's going to be a ton of change and a ton of new stuff. And we want them to get all of that. So we will also have sort of a dedicated onboarding that will happen that is unlike it's ever happened before, that all the candidates will be part of. So yeah, I agree that getting an idea before the election of what you're getting into is great. We need more of that. There will also be a more detailed to make sure that day one, people really understand the ins and outs of what they're doing, or hopefully anyway.
Is that responsive to you, Terry? Good, great. Zach, look forward to, well, see your raised hand, and the mic is yours.
Thanks, Bill. I'll just share what I wrote in chat as well. I agree. I think Terry's point of having kind of a pre-onboarding mindset is probably the right thing to do, especially since we'll be in a kind of post-budget proposal adoption timeline where we can potentially have much more clarity around roles and responsibilities, so that there's not misinformation about what kind of services or resources are happening in district, for example, and setting of expectations, right? So my comment, actually, I intended to ask you, James, thinking about these June sessions. I'm assuming, though you're going to have them across all 4 different districts, that they're going to be open to anybody. It's not going to be district limited. Okay. I do think there might be, there's some, I've started to see some like candidate mixers or something along those lines happening, but I don't know to what extent the city can host something like that around this kind of a conference idea, right? But that also might be an opportunity to encourage collaboration among elected officials.
Thank you, Zach. Jane, look forward to your comment, observation, question.
Yes, want to congratulate James on running a first round that was quite exemplary. There was lots and lots of information, and people needed to know stuff in order to be able to just put their name in the hat, as it were. So nice job. I do want to support Terry and Zach's point that at some point the job description has to be identified, or at least loosey-goosely explained, other than the fact of what it's not, which is managing bureaus. So part of the reason that, I mean, I've lived here for 50 years, and I managed to work out what a city commissioner did just based on history, because there is not even a present job description for a city commissioner. But what we do, if we've lived here for a few years, we sort of can work it out. So if I wanted to run, I could work it out. I could work out what my day-to-day might be. There is lack of clarity in the greater community about what this job is. And I think that you can't vote for somebody to do a job if you don't know what the job is, because it takes a different kind of skill set to manage the Parks Department than it is to lobby for greater city issues. And how do you do that if you're from St. John's or you're from Multnomah Village or what have you? Is the job to just represent your district, or is it to represent your district within the greater city concern? And what kinds of issues might you be working on? Budget, definitely, for one. And I don't think it's that hard, because we keep saying other places in the country and the world do this. So all we have to do is look at a couple of places that are sort of kind of like us and say, okay, this is what their job, these are the things that they've been tackling, this is the job. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. I hear that all the time. Well, we don't know how many staff any city councillor should have, because we don't know what their work scope is. We don't know what they're going to be doing. So I think if I was running for this job, I'd really want to have an idea about what it is, other than representing my community and it being city politics. So that's that. And I'm hoping that, as Zach and Terry are both advocating, that in this next round, we can be transparent about that based on history of what other people who have been doing this, like in my hometown of Leeds in Yorkshire in England, who have a very similar form of government. So just an encouragement along those lines. And thank you for listening. I went on too long.
Not too long, Jane. You expressed a concern well, so thank you. Amy, look forward to hearing you.
Well, great points, Jane. I agree with you. And I have gone to several of the candidate forums. There was one in District 3 that I watched online, and one in District 2 that I attended. And I think that there also was like this recurring realization that some of the candidates, while they need to know what this job description is as well as possible, they also need to know what it's not. And there was a lot of conversation around what they'll bring to the city in certain ways that kind of came across like they may not understand entirely what the county does and what the city does. So that could be an area for expansion of training in the future, is really helping make sure that they stick to what the county or what the city is overseeing, and clearly understand where the lines are between city and county.
Thank you, Amy. And if I could add a comment, I'm just brainstorming, but perhaps to give individuals an understanding. I mean, I'm just thinking of, a state legislator or a Congress person, whether, it's analogous or there is an analogy there, but I don't know from the city's perspective how good an analogy that is. But it would convey a ready understanding for if it's helpful for people, because one's more familiar with a state legislator or Congress individual. If we've completed comments on candidate sessions, our next subject is the voter education website. So we can go to the next slide. And may I comment, we'll invite comments on the voter education website, after a presentation or review by Sophia. But let me comment, I think after our meeting, Julia is going to send an email to us to give a time frame to give additional comments, because we all may not have thoroughly reviewed all of these subjects before this meeting. And if you have additional comments, there will be an opportunity. But we're making good observations now, so let's continue. So Sophia, shall I turn this over to you to talk about the voter ed website?
Yes, thank you. So I think we have about 20, we got 5 minutes extra on this agenda item, which I'm happy about. But we wanted to talk about the voter education website, and then after we wanted to talk about the ranked choice voting platform. So first with the website, we sent a copy of this website a couple weeks ago, I think before your last meeting. I got some feedback from some folks, really appreciate it. We've tried to address most of them. But for folks that really haven't had a chance to look at it, this is kind of our initial phase of our voter education website, where we hope to continue to add additional materials as we create them, upload presentations, recordings, etc., so we can get to that bite snack approach. So I'll also put a link on the chat in a little bit, but just to kind of walk you through the website. At the top, we'll have information about ranked choice voting. Then we have a separate box specifically talking about district-based elections. Sorry, about how, district-based elections work. A contact us tab where folks there can ask additional questions as well as request briefing presentations. Then we go on to kind of the governance side where we talk about what positions are on the ballot. So it's kind of related to the conversation we were just having. So I think definitely got some feedback there on additional areas we can add. And then the next box is an FAQ section where, again, we have some high level Q&A, but as you're hearing more questions about ranked choice voting or anything related to elections, definitely want to let us know so that we can start addressing those there. And then lastly, we have a resource an additional education material section. There we hope to really have that as a library of all voter education materials, where we can have recordings of our meetings as well as outside resources that talk about ranked choice voting. So additionally, what you're not seeing here, and that's the part that we're building out, is the voter education grant section. So additionally, we'll have another pink box here that will talk all about the grant opportunities, describe that process, and eventually where the grant applications would live and where we can direct folks to apply for grants. So I'll take a quick pause, see if any folks have any questions on the website. I could walk you through it if that's of interest, but I know some folks have spent time looking at it, so whatever you all want.
Do any of our member or anyone have questions one would like to ask Sophia? So Sophia, oh yes, Fred, please.
Oh, just looking at this, Sophia, I mean, it's not online now. Is that correct? I tried to find it on my iPhone and I couldn't.
Yes, it is. We haven't explicitly been pushing it out completely everywhere, but it is alive. You can access it.
Okay.
Fred, if I can interrupt, when Julia sent, I think last week, a notice of our upcoming meeting. Oh, she had links to several.
No, I know what I did. I put a slash between vote and 2024. Oops. Okay, I would start not with how does ranked choice voting work on that menu on the left. Instead, say what positions on the ballot are, what's new, what's different. You've got that up at your heading up above. But again, per our discussion earlier about how complex discussions about ranked choice voting can be, I wouldn't make that my first menu option for somebody going to the website, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, are you talking more too also about, is it something that we've discussed internally about describing the current form and then what we're going to? Is that where you're?
Right, that graphic that's got, there's 4 commissioner candidates elected at large, and now it's going to be 3 by 4 districts. Something that simple, so that's a basic fact that not every, I don't think probably half the population doesn't even understand yet. And so that's kind of the first voter education. You're in a district, you get you're going to elect 3 counselors or a mayor, an auditor, and then here's how that's going to happen. Sort of that kind of logic chain. Because you're going to have some people that don't know nothing and others that want to dive into the more esoteric items that they already have some familiarity with, and they want to argue with James or you or or the county about, or United Way about what all that means. So that content probably has to be there, but deeper down, I think.
Great, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Fred, and thank you, Sophia. Sophia, let's say I could make an observation about the section that says how does ranked choice voting work, but am I premature? Because I know we're going to address the ranked choice voting platform, but I think that's a little different. So am I appropriate to give you an observation now about how does ranked choice voting work?
Please.
Okay. We don't know in that it was just a couple refinements. For the single, I forget the single candidate, or the single election, it has a nice little flow chart. I didn't see a flow chart for the multi, choice option. Now, I know it would be more complicated, but a lot of individuals are visual. So if you could do it, it could be nice. I also noticed and I know it's more complex, but for the multiple choices, the verbal, the written description did not address how one transferred excess votes of a winning candidate. Again, that would make it more complicated, but I didn't see how that was addressed. So those are a couple comments.
Can I interject here?
Fred.
Bill,
Yes.
I thought that the slides in the candidate training that talked about, there were the colored slides, I think I mentioned this earlier, that talked about how they were transferred, was made it quite clear graphically, and that's not on the, thank you for Sophia for sending us the correct link to the voter education website. It's not that, those slides are not, you're right, Bill, those slides are not in this, on the website, and I think they'd be very useful, maybe with narrative, even typed narrative to explain.
Yeah, so we do have a presentation that it basically expands on the slides, Fred.
Okay.
It's essentially a version of the train the trainer that you received, your GTAC briefing presentation that expands on the election methods. And it walks through a single winner election and a multiple choice election and what happens with the votes, et cetera. So that's currently being reviewed, and then we're going to send it in review process. We'll send it to the county. And then eventually what I'd love to do with you all is get a few volunteers to record giving that presentation so we can post it on the website, because I think it describes that process. But I think the thing that we need to consider too is the May election. So we are one of those things on the back end, but trying to find that balance before we are pushing it out too soon. Good
to know there's a work in progress. Thanks, Sophia.
And we're here, Sophia, to give you all the feedback you'd like. So thank you. Amy, please.
I think we're all also maybe not the best final set of eyes for this sort of thing to go through. So I was curious if we should try to recruit somebody each in our life who's not in the bubble of this, or just making sure that somebody outside of this group looks at it, because we're not looking at it with fresh eyes anymore.
Great idea. I would, welcome that, and any feedback. Find a partner, a friend, anyone.
Very good. Yes. Thank you, Amy. Jane, please.
Yeah, just following up on Amy, I had my husband, who is, smarter than the average bear, take a look at it. And he was very confused. And to some extent, I was very confused. But you know how you get when you kind of you're looking at something and you go, this isn't working for me, but I don't really know why it's not working for me. I was in one of those moods yesterday where I just couldn't even begin to ascertain what it was that was problematic. So this is what I would like to do, which I would like us all to do, which is to take more time to take a look at it and it seems like it's in the wrong order to me too, to go back to Fred's point. That's definitely one. But it just seems like there's too much, too many words, and it just seemed too much. But what I will promise to do is, like, within the next week, spend some time when I'm not overly well with why God is this confusing me, and try and get something concrete back to you, Sophia. I promise I'll do that. So I think if we could all do that one more time and just take a chunk of time, because I think that this ultimately will be the tool that more people get to see than our presentations. And so therefore it needs to be fab and easy, right? So sorry, Sophia, I'm just a dud. I promise I'll be less dud-like in a week.
No, I know. I mean, I appreciate that. If you all could take another look at it. And like I said, this is just initial phase of the website. We'll be adding to it. So there'll be more changes coming. And I think it'll be ever evolving, right? So it's not the last time we'll discuss this website.
Sophia, do you have a timeline in mind, for how we can, following James' recommendation, for how we can give you feedback? You hopefully not, you don't want it in 24 hours, but a week, 2 weeks, a month, or
I'll be honest, you probably won't like my answer. Whenever you can. I mean, it's ever evolving, the website, like I said. So if you just, are spending some time and have a few thoughts, feel free to just send us some bullet point emails with some changes you want, and then we'll work with them.
Okay, thank you, Sophia. And Jane, I think you've completed your question. Am I correct? Yes. Okay. Thanks, Jane. I mean, you're welcome anytime, of course. James, please. Look forward to hearing you.
Yeah, great feedback so far. I especially, I think I agree about we need, keeping in line with our whole bite snack meal model. Like, we need something that the first time they get to the website is that sort of overview. I think the majority of people, maybe not the majority of people, a lot of people that get to this website will be directed there through events or advertisements or outreach or whatever. So they'll have already had that first. But, we're also doing some like search engine optimization stuff. So like, it's entirely possible that, if you search voting in Portland, like, we want this to pop up. So somebody may stumble across it. So I think that's a great point, that we want to kind of keep working on that front page to make it more of an entry point. And then just about the feedback portion, we're not like this website is live, and if people have questions, it's a great place to send them to, but we're not really going live until after the May primary. So we're very happy to do overhauls and edits and changes. And then that's when we'll do our first, after the primaries, when we'll do our first kind of ad campaign that directs a larger population to this. Until then, it's going to be like, 1% of Portlanders are going to see this website before we really do that big push. So absolutely, we still have time over the next few months to adjust and make changes. And don't think that if you haven't thought of something in the next week that we aren't still listening. Please, like, keep sending it to us, throughout. We can update as it comes.
Hey, thank you, James. And just Amy's observation about having new eyes look at it, and James' recommendation. I'm almost thinking maybe the site could be organized around how a voter is going to be thinking, such as, okay, well, for whom am I voting? How do I vote? I mean, the sequence could be how a voter is going to be thinking. And right now it's not quite like that, and make it easy for the thought process. But we'll work on comments and maybe send them to you via email. And if we want to have a special meeting, if someone wants that, recommend it, and we'll go for it. All right. Well, let's go to our next subject, which is the ranked choice voting platform. And I'm thinking that Sophia, you're on the stage for the ranked choice voting platform as well.
Yeah, it'll be James and I. Can we go to the next slide? So this is related to the website. So this is another pink box that we'll build out, or we'll have this platform. We've mentioned it a few times before, but just as a recap, it's an online platform that we're going to embed on the website and will allow folks to practice running an election using ranked choice voting. It's going to be, again, on our website, and then it's going to be available in all those languages that you see there on the screen. So Spanish, Vietnamese, Chinese, Russian, Somali, Ukrainian, Romanian, Nepali, and Turkish. We're working with our vendor. They're having trouble getting the 2 keys translation, but we finally got it. We're able to get a vendor and to get those to them. And so again, the idea is that we would have this available after the May election on our website and then promote it so folks can practice running an election. We also have additionally to this platform, we bought essentially full platform access where we can give community members, maybe a neighborhood association, community groups, access to this platform where they can customize their election. So for example, if it's the example we've been using internally is, let's say we give it to the Parks Department and they run a, what is your favorite park, right? Or vote for your favorite park using ranked choice voting. So they would be able to then adapt or change the candidates as parks, et cetera. So we wanted to understand really kind of what GTAC's priority would be in sharing this platform with community. How do we promote this opportunity, and then kind of what maybe potential additional materials we might need in using the platform. So we thought a good way to start would be by just doing a quick demo of the actual platform if you haven't had a chance to look at it. So I think James is going to walk us through a quick little demo here.
Okay. Hopefully everybody can see the screen. So yeah, just to sort of reiterate a point Sophia was touching on, based on our research, based on all of my experience in voter education, the number one way that someone is going to learn and be comfortable and confident in utilizing ranked choice voting is to have done it. So we really do want this to be a project that if we can get 100% of Portland voters to have experienced this platform prior to receiving the ballot, that would be great. Because walking through it is really the best way for them to see it visually, do it, feel more comfortable, and then develop questions based on that. So I'll sort of quickly go through what we have. Hopefully you've all had a chance to see this. We sent a link and hopefully you're able to participate. I'll go through a vote to show you what the voter will see, and then I'll show a little bit about what sort of our back end and accessibility will be. So this is on the platform, the ranked vote platform itself. We would have it embedded. So kind of quickly, I'll show this is Minneapolis, also used the same platform. So just using their website as an example so you can see kind of how they embedded it. We can sort of do it how we want. But they have all their ranked voting information here, and they've got a bunch of stuff. And then as you scroll down, you can see that they've got it just embedded here. So you can get to it. It shows up. You can participate in it here, or you can go to the actual site. So this is just an example of kind of how it might show up on our website. Now, when we go here, we're working with the developer of this, so we've made it more Portland-centric. There are a few more pieces that we might add in and that I can talk about that can make it even more like specific to Portland. Make sure that we're educating on the things that are different in Portland. But as you can see, we've got our 6 ranks here. We've got all these. One thing the platform doesn't do, which we don't think is going to kill the viability of it, but you really can't do a write-in. The requirements for data analytics to be able to have people doing write-ins in this manner just doesn't really lend itself to this platform. But that's something we can clarify when we talk about platform. So as you see here, you fill in your votes as you've probably already experienced. I'm not spending a lot of time on my favorite donut place, but just to kind of show you, if you do the wrong thing, it does alert you. It won't let you submit, and it sort of says, hey, this isn't, we're not, it won't let you do that. It won't let you rank, in the wrong place. On the ballot, technically they will be able to fill it out, but in the educational tool, we want them to not be able to do that so that they get the sense of over time, like how a ballot, the best way to fill out a ballot to get all your rankings counted. So they do this, it'll show your ranking at the bottom so you can kind of confirm it is what you thought. as Sophia mentioned, there's languages. The languages Sophia mentioned are languages we had them add to the platform that are Portland specific, but the platform actually is in about, I think, 30 languages now. So a bunch of Alaska Native languages and a ton of languages. So there's very few languages in Portland that someone would not be able to access the platform on. All right, if I submit my vote, we'll go to this preliminary page. All of this stuff, the colors, the graphics, we can mess with all of that on the back end that I'll briefly cover. But essentially, you'll get to this. It says, thanks for your vote. Down here is a banner that we've added. So in this case, I'm just having it say, learn more and go to the Portland Vote page. And then this link will take them to the page that we've been talking about, the Portland, or the page we've designed. We can have this sort of be whatever to draw attention, but they can go there if they want a deeper dive. And then the platform itself also provides. So if you see here, I've put in my votes, and now I can look at the preliminary results. And it'll break out a few things for me. So the first thing is, I'm going to stop this from running through the rounds. The first thing is it gives you your winners, the votes to win, and the candidates. So the winners, I've set it up as a multi-winner ranked choice voting election. We can set it up as a single winner as well. And it'll give you the summary sort of at the top. This is votes to win is essentially the threshold. So this is what we talk about when you're, that 25% plus one. This is just doing the math to show 48 total people voted on this, and that means there's 13 votes required to become elected, and then the number of candidates that start out in the first round. Then it walks you through this visual. As you might have seen, it'll do it automatically, but you can also sort of pause it and then walk through individually. So this is the first level of visual display that I think is going to be really useful for people seeing, oh, great, in round one, a ton of people liked these mochi donuts. So that was well over the threshold. As they move to round two, they can see that this lost this many votes. Where did those votes go? They went to all of these places. You may notice here that we lost 4 votes, but only 1 vote was added in 3 places. That's actually because as I was filling this out, this is the only time that an election official in Portland will say that I was padding the ballot by adding in my own votes for the demonstration. But essentially, there were a couple of votes for mochi donuts that were just a single vote. They only ranked the first one, and in those cases, if the ballot has no other vote, then it can't transfer a vote to that. So there's some things here that it is not perfect in displaying at this level, and that's something we sort of want to make sure that we clarify, and we make sure that it's very clear once people are actually using it. I'll come back to this export, but as you go down, some explanations. These are things that we can adjust to essentially be like an FAQ of our own. So this can, once we are ready to launch it, this can be sort of a simple language about walking through, what it is, what did I just see? What is happening here? What did I see? And then it'll walk through the rounds in a sort of different way, just showing you the results of each round so that you can get through until you get to the final winner of all 3. Something else that it does, if they want that deeper dive, that next step, you can also export what just happened, the vote and the tabulations, to RCViz. And when you do that, that's okay, it's not gonna let me do that right now, but if you export to it and you can do it on your own, once we have it set up, it basically has an even deeper visualization. So it really shows these different tables and models and ways to visualize the votes being transferred, so that if this isn't enough, if you want a deeper dive on the visualization, you have a next step there. So this is sort of the walkthrough of what they'll see in the platform. If I go back to the dashboard, these are things that the voter won't have access to, but we do. So this platform will sort of give us access to a bunch of different elections. We can build out as many elections as we want. When we give our partners this, they can also build out their own elections. So they can make that. So it's not a capacity issue where we have to make 1,000 elections for a dozen different partners. They can have access to this. We'll train them how to do it, and then they can make an election every day if they want. Do whatever they want. If you go into the details for it, there's a number of things you can see. I won't do a deep dive on this because there's a lot here, but basically this is how we set up all of our different things. We can add candidates. We can call them whatever we want. We can randomize it, the order, or have it be alphabetical, or however we'd like. We can set it to the number of winners we want. We can set how it's displayed, the number of rankings. So it's very versatile in adjusting how the election actually shows up. A lot of these we're going to kind of lock in as with our partners, do this every time because we want it to look like as much like the Portland election as humanly possible. but this gives us a lot of variation in kind of how we display it, how we set it up, how the results are visible, and what people can or can't see. So that's very, very quick run through. I want to leave more time for questions, and I really want to talk about hear feedback on how we can best utilize outreach to partners and sort of utilize this platform going forward. I'm gonna stop sharing, and then if somebody else wants to take back over.
Okay, yeah, thank you, James. And I'll soon ask about questions, but let me ask you, we have one more subject after this, which is the media plan. And at least within our scheduled time, we got about 15 minutes. So if those who want to talk about media plan, I mean, I'll try to give at least 5 minutes toward or more toward the end. But I'm just raising the the time conscious effort, and we can run a little long if people are willing. But let's go to questions. Terry, please, look forward to your observations.
Yeah, just real quick. First of all, I'm the one who was stuffing the ballot box for the mochi donuts. So I'll own up to that. But part of it was also just to see how it treated exhausted ballots. And one of the things that I noticed, and again, that's because there are too few votes, but it didn't count that third winner if the third winner didn't reach the threshold, which would be incorrect, right? So, it's just one of those things to watch for. But I'm glad Mochi Donuts won. Thanks.
Yeah, just to quickly respond to that, if you don't mind, Bill.
Please.
Yeah, that's a great observation. There are a few things we're still working with the developer that are not exactly, something else that you may notice if you play with it a bunch. It does batch elimination, which we don't do, but many jurisdictions do. Technically, you end up with the same end result, but we want it to be absolutely as close so that those questions don't arise. Well, wait, what if this is doing it differently than what I'm seeing? It just adds to confusion. So those are things, and that's a great point. That's a display issue. It's still doing the algorithm on the back end to figure out who had the most, who had the third most votes there. So it's something we can just have to be displayed. But that's a great observation. Things like that are exactly what we want. So that when we get to our final visual version, it is displaying things that are not confusing and are helpful and people can see it. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Zach, look forward to hearing.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. So I had two thoughts on just kind of the functionality, which I don't know if the developer would be able to do, but it would be nice to be able to incorrectly put multiple on the same rank so that there would be an error message for that as well, which right now it's just radial buttons, so you don't have that option. I don't know if you could change it to check boxes. Generally, that's how those programs work, but that's just a suggestion. And then what would be really nice, I think, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's too much information, but with the warning, there could be an inclusion of a link that goes back to the explainer of why that's the problem and how it would be tabulated if you incorrectly filled out the ballot. And leveraging the language that's going to get developed that goes into the actual ballot explainer would be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Zach. Fred, please.
Yeah, first to Terry's suggestion, and maybe it was, I looked away when it goes through the actual tabulation and there's the different phases. It seemed like we got to the three winners without seeing who the second winner was between the first and the sixth iterations phases. So that's a little confusing. It would be how we per Terry's advice, showing how the votes are transferred would then get us to that second winner. I may have just missed it. My concern is about this platform. There's two views of this. One, how close does this ballot match with? We were waiting for Tim and the county elections to get from their vendor what a sample ballot would look like. And of course, we don't want to, we will want to distribute sample ballots, labeled sample ballots. probably these ballots shouldn't look like the ballots they're going to get in the mail. But still, maybe that caveat needs to be included, that when we have sample ballots after the primary, much closer to November, to when the ballots are mailed. I know the League of Women Voters puts sample ballots in, the voters pamphlet used to put in sample ballots. I don't know if it still does. That we want to make sure that there isn't some cognitive dissonance here between what they've exercised on this platform versus what they're going to actually get in the mail. Again, that's just something we got to explore. I don't have an answer to that.
James?
Yeah. So, yeah, an important distinction. We want what it walks through to be as close to what is happening in Portland as possible so that they understand the process. We do not want the ballot that you were filling out should not and will not look like the Portland ballot visually. I just imagine many nightmare scenarios where someone makes their own election, fills in names, fills it out, takes a screenshot and sends it around as, like, look at all these ballots that I found, like that. We absolutely will not have that happen. So yeah, it should appear, and it's meant to be, we're leaning into the fun side of it. That's why we did this donut thing. It should be a little bit, kind of, we're gamifying it to some extent because we want people to walk through it and be excited. And, it's hard to get a random person's attention. You all, I love because you're very attentive. The average Portlander, trying to get them to go to a website or on their phone or whatever and do this and walk through this, that takes a little bit more effort. So trying to gamify it in a way and get people interested and have it look a little more appealing, that's great. Definitely don't want it to look exactly like the ballot. And if we started accidentally to start looking like the ballot, that's something we would shift away from. So it's an important point and I think an important distinction.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Fred. I could add just a couple quick observations. I did test, when I did that, but just sort of an obvious one. When I looked at the preliminary results, I did not know to scroll down to see all that additional information. So maybe there could be something at the top that tells you to do that. And it took me a while to figure out that I could look at the various steps, for the voting, but maybe there could be some pop-up windows that explain what's going on visually. It could just be helpful. Terry, did you have an additional observation?
One, actually, just sort of real quick question, because this platform is going to be available widely to community groups. So if you're a community group holding a candidates forum for District 4, for example, and at the end of the forum, you run a straw poll, is that a possibility, and can that be done, or you want to discourage that or encourage that? What do you think?
I think there's sort of a couple layers there. We have levels of partnership. We will have this on our official website. When we have it on our official website, we're going to be doing things that are very far away from being real elections and things like that. It'll be very much just donut shops and stuff like that. The partnerships we develop will be a little more authoritative because they're like, they can, they're receiving it from us. There's an official partnership. We're sort of paying for them to use this. That also, I think we don't necessarily want to discourage some of that. But all of that said, this is a public platform. We're paying the vendor to have it to adjust the development cycle to be more like Portland, but anyone can go and get this and use it. And I think the more people that use it in Portland for whatever purpose they want, great. Like if everybody by the time they get to receiving a ballot in October has done a ranked choice vote in some manner or method, a dozen times, that I think that's better for us. But we would just have a separation there of any of those types of votes that we would not want to necessarily endorse on our own website. We want that separation. We're saying, look, people are doing it they can do it their own. This is a public platform. We are not endorsing necessarily how they use the platform. For our partners, there will be a training, and Regiment will say, look, we're paying for you to use this platform. We want you to use it in this way. So I think both will exist, but the sort of endorsed and authoritative and authentic mode will be a little bit different. Yeah.
Thank you, James. Well, let's move to the our final subject before we talk about next steps, and that's the media plan. And Sophia, hopefully we've left enough time for you to talk about the media plan.
Yeah, no, I think what we'll do, maybe I'll work with Julie and June, is we'll send a few follow-up questions about some of these topics so that we can sit, you can sit with them for a little bit and think about them, and feel free to give us feedback via email. But with the last couple of minutes, we really just wanted to bring up and start talking about media planning. So we can go to the next slide. We have in our budget, as if you don't remember, about $48,000 in this fiscal year to do paid ads. Essentially that we can really spend however we'd like, whether it's social media ads, paid ads, digital ads, a mix of it. We were hoping to do these ad runs beginning of summer, so starting in June towards the end of August, September. The county wants to understand what our media plans are so that then they can plan for their media ad buys. So we're hoping that if we can do them, figure out our planning now, we can then start developing the ads and then hopefully give them an idea of exactly what we're doing so that they can, so we can coordinate on our ads. One thing we definitely don't want to be doing is having ads on the same topic on the same week, right? And then directing voters to different platforms, different websites. So definitely want to be coordinated in that effort. What we were hoping to do is to do a series of multiple ad pushes that would direct folks to the city's website, where we would then highlight essentially what's going on that month. So it's, for example, we were thinking if we start doing ads in June, one of the first things that we would want to highlight are the candidate learning sessions. Then if we do one in July, right, we do the RCV platform, and then in August, September, right, any of the additional materials or the briefings, recordings that we have that we've created. We were hoping to do a mix of print, digital, and social media ads through a variety of different platforms. And so here on the screen, you can see a few examples. So we could put ads in larger publications, local publications, and then other medium outlets like TriMet bus ads, billboards, etc. So we wanted to see kind of what your priorities and interests were from this group so that then we can take that information and build out a robust media plan. Of course, we're limited in funds, right? We have $48,000. So in an ideal world, we could buy all these things, but reality is that we have to probably do a good mix of these different platforms to ensure that we're reaching different constituents. So that's the general idea. And we just wanted to have a brainstorming session, but we do have 3 minutes. So I'll take a pause and then we can, I think, follow up on this conversation.
But if we do have some quick comments, I think we can work in a minute or two. But please, you can email Sophia and with regard to comments. Sophia, I do see in the chat, consider adding North Peninsula Review for the potential publications. Do other individuals have any observations? Fred.
Yeah, just quickly, Sophia, how much media or ads does $48,000 buy? I just have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say I'm not a communications expert either. So that's what we're hoping with. If we have an idea of kind of what your priorities are, then we would work with the media folks. But yeah, definitely. My short answer would be it depends on what you're buying. If it's social versus print, that then would be, and then the type of publication.
Right. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
It's less expensive than buying an ad for the Super Bowl.
Excuse.
Amy, well, welcome to making the final observation.
Kind of piggybacking on the last question around how far 48,000 will go. It strikes me as this: if we try to hit too many media targets with that budget, we're going to be really spreading it so thinly. So I think it, maybe deserves a follow-up conversation around how do we make sure we're getting the highest return on investment for that spend rather than trying to reach every corner of the media market with that spend. We've got other tools to reach some parts of the market with our our contract with hard to reach voters. And so this has to reach the most general pop sort of audience as possible, because it's the only, ad spend for the average voter.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Amy.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, yeah, that's something I was thinking as well. Is I think the county wants to understand if we're, for example, doing all of our ads, for example, I don't know, the Mercury and some local publications, they might coordinate and do other publications. So I think that's why they want to know exactly where we're spending our dollars.
And thank you, Sophia. And in the chat, I do see recommendations for a couple additional publications, so you can see that in chat. Next steps. Thank you for advancing the slides. As we know, the meeting's been recorded. A couple of future meetings. The next full GTAC meeting is March 13, and the District and Council Operations Subcommittee will meet on February 22. And Julia, I think in her email had a poll for us to fill out, so she can figure out the best time for our next meeting. So please look for Julia's email and to do that poll. So I think with that, unless anyone wishes to add an observation, which I'll also call wisdom, we will adjourn our meeting. So thank you everyone for being here. Good collaboration and discussion.
Thanks, Bill. Glad you're going to have Jane to help for futures.
Yes, and welcome, Jane. And thank you, Zach, for co-chairing the general GTAC.